All right, welcome everyone to Lazy Lab Podcast, episode 13. With us today on the show is Jesse Iwuji. He is a Naval Academy graduate, Naval Academy football player, and current Navy officer, who's also a Texan and a NASCAR driver. Jesse, welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. We really appreciate you, giving us any bit of your time. I'm sure you're a very, very busy guy. And I can't wait to hear a little more about your story. So I know we're limited on time here today. Let's just jump right in. What you grew up in Texas, right? And played football in Texas. Is that what made you decide to go, Naval Academy and down that road versus, maybe playing football at other schools?
Yeah, so growing up in Texas, naturally I gravitated towards football because football was the biggest sport in that state. And although I did have a little bit of a passion for cars and racing at that time as a kid, no one else in my family did. It was just me. I still naturally gravitated towards football because that was what I saw the most around me. So going through middle school and high school, I worked really hard to get better and better at football because I had a big goal and dream to go off to college and play college football. So throughout middle school and high school, I worked to get bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic, all that. Because when I first started playing football, I wasn't one of those players who just had all the talent in the world and was just destined for greatness. I really wasn't that good at all. I had a few raw skills, and that was about it. Nothing too crazy. So I really had to grind hard to get better. And eventually, through all that hard work and effort, and doing more than everyone else was doing, those who were more talented and all that stuff, I was working harder in the weight room. I was working harder off the field. I was doing all the stuff necessary to surpass them while they were sleeping. And while doing that, that's what allowed me to eventually be, one of the few from our school who got recruited to play college football. And not only did I get recruited to play college football, I got to basically, play Division 1A college football. And the Naval Academy was the school that was recruiting me the most. So I just looked at it as a really good opportunity to go to a great school, get a great education, be able to play football for a great team. And then when I graduate, be able to serve as an officer in the US Navy. So it was just a win in all three different ways. And I felt like it was the best way for me to go achieve my goals and dreams, but not only do that, set myself up for a successful future after that.
No, right on. Yeah, that's there's probably a lot of things that played into that as well. What are some of the schools that were recruiting you outside Naval Academy? I just want to know who they beat, who they beat out.
Yeah, so I think Army had sent me a letter. I had a whole bunch of different letters from some smaller schools in Texas. Louisiana, Monroe, I believe, sent me a letter. There were another D1 school. And I think all the other schools, for the most part, were just either Division I AA, Texas State also, Division I AA, or D2. And
Okay.
I think maybe like one D3 school, but I wasn't going to go any of those places. I already set my mind on going Division 1A and a good Division 1A school. So Naval Academy was just the best of all the options.
Yeah, it's a great school. I love the storyline of you did not pursue the Army letter and went with the Navy one. So I think that's pretty awesome. What's the time frame around when this happened? Because I know, as this thing publishes, it's September 11th. It's the 20th anniversary of those tragic events in New York City and Pennsylvania and the Pentagon. What's the timeline around that? And did that have any influence on your service or your selection as Service Academy?
So, when September 11th occurred, 2001, I was in ninth grade in high school. And it was I'd only been in high school for probably a few weeks at that point. And I remember coming off of a bus, our school bus in Texas, and hearing about it. And no one really thought everyone just thought it was like some mistake by some pilots. Some pilot basically didn't know where he's going and flew right into the building. And then the second one hit, and we're like, whoa, that's really weird. Two pilots didn't know what they're doing today. And then all of a sudden we started hearing all the news, and everyone's kind of confused on what's going on. And eventually, they let us go home early. And once I got home and I got to see the news on TV, I started figuring out what really was going on. I was like, man, this is going to change a lot of things. And from then on, it was wild. But I don't think that really influenced my decision to go to the academy. What really influenced my decision was just where I thought it was going to help me in life, as far as like, post school. I didn't want to be one of those athletes who went to college, played football, graduated, and didn't really do anything. I wanted to be more than that. I wanted to set myself up for success. And I think going to the academy was the best way to do that. And, while serving in the Navy as an officer, I got to see a lot of great things, do a lot of great things, serve the country. And, my first 5 years in, I could have gotten out after 5, but I decided I wanted to stay because, we were doing great things, and I was just doing my part to maintain the freedoms that we have here. So that's why I've always wanted to stay in. Even though I'm in the reserves now, I'm still doing my at least small part.
Yeah,
and,
no,
and,
I mean, you're doing,
and helping the
you're
greater good.
serving, you're
Yeah.
serving. That's exactly right. And reserves are just as important as our active duty folks, still getting the mission done wherever you're called to do so. Um, the step up in competition from high school to, that 1A look at the Naval Academy, what was that like as far as like the way the athlete prepares and the amount of work that goes into just game day preparation?
So stepping up from high school to college as far as football, everybody's good. Everyone's fast. Everyone's strong. Everybody was, quote unquote, they're the All-American at their school, that they came from. So everyone's good. You're no longer like the baller.
Yeah,
Everybody else is
right,
too. So although, there's some people who rise above and eventually become, studs in college as well, but everyone's good. So you can't really sleep on anybody. And that's what I saw, in that competition. Everyone was fast. I remember I was so nervous before the first game that I had started because I wasn't sure if I was going to be fast enough. I was like, man, hopefully, I'm not out here just getting roasted.
right,
But that's maybe just because I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself, which I don't know why I didn't, because I did have speed and I was one of the fastest people, at our school. So why didn't I have enough confidence? I don't know. I was just probably super nervous, but that step up was definitely different for sure. Everyone's really skilled. Everyone works hard. Everyone grinds hard. A lot of people have big aspirations to go on past college and play in the NFL. So they set themselves up for that. So
right,
you just have to stay on your toes at all time. Any team can beat you on any day. It's funny because you see fans who don't play, watch and like say, oh, that particular team is terrible. They'll never win. Like you can't ever approach a game like that. Even if we were playing a
right.
team that might have a losing record or haven't won a game at all that year, we never approach the game like, oh yeah, we've got this for sure. You can't, because once again, everybody is good. Just because they haven't beaten anyone doesn't mean they don't have talent and they don't have skills. And
That's
on
it.
any given day, they can turn things around and really put a whooping on you. So every game you got to approach it with the mindset of you're playing the best team in college football that day, because they could be the best team that day.
Yeah.
You just never know.
Well, like you said, you can't sleep on anyone, right? Like that's that your team's filled with a bunch of talented people that were the all stars at their school, and that school that you're playing against on Saturday is full of the same type of football players. So yeah, it's a great point. I would imagine it is a huge step up in speed. Like I've always anyone I've ever talked to is just like a gigantic step up in speed and the pace of the game and everything. Who is like some of the you're on the defensive side of the ball, right? So who are some of the marquee matchups for you that you lined up across from?
It's hard to remember some of their names because it's literally been over 10 years now. But some of the, I would say, like as far as receivers, I can't remember. I mean, I do remember. Oh, like we played against Michael Floyd. We played against Golden Tate. We played against a receiver from Rutgers, and I can't remember his name, but he was pretty good. Um, Played against a lot of good folks. Running backs though, played against who's that really short one from Rutgers? Ray Rice.
Ray
Played
Rice.
against
Okay.
him. Played against some great quarterbacks. Played against Matt Ryan. Played against he played at Delaware and then went to Baltimore Ravens. Which one was that?
Joe
Joe
Flacco.
Flacco. Played
Yeah.
against him. Played against the Missouri quarterback that went off to play for Jacksonville. Can't remember his name.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Played against a lot of great players.
Yeah.
Yeah, played against a lot of great teams. Played against Ohio State. Obviously they had a tons of talent. Terrell
Of course.
Pryor was a
Right.
quarterback at that time. Yeah, and I played against a lot of good players. So every team has good players. No matter what their schedule looks like, no matter what their record looks like, every team has really good players. So even actually one of the coolest matchups I think we probably went against was Deshaun. No, what is it? Lashawn McCoy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like a modern day Reggie Bush at that time.
Yeah. Lashawn McCoy was no joke. I mean, even when he made it, into the pros, I think he battled some injury,
Yeah.
obviously, but he was, I mean, very, very good running back.
Hmm.
It's got to be cool to kind of look back on that time, right? And then I'm sure you picked up some lessons from playing in the academy and how you prepare that helped you make the transition into, wild transition from football into motorsports is not necessarily a path that most athletes take, but it's one that you chose. And you alluded to, at the beginning of the show here that was something that, in your younger years, you were interested in motorsports. Where did that come from?
Not sure exactly where it came from. I know one of my favorite shows when I was 5, 6 years old was Knight Rider. So
Okay.
yeah. So I used to watch that show back then. It was like early '90s, and I guess I was watching the reruns of it. I thought it was live at that time, but I guess it wasn't. Watched that. Watched Speed Racer. Watched the cartoon Speed Racer. Watched the show called Viper. Watched all these different car shows. Watched racing a little bit
Yeah.
on TV. Did all that. I guess that's what kind of grew my passion at first when I was a little kid, and then eventually the Fast and Furious movies came out, so that grew my car passion. And then that just kept blossoming. I think once you're a car person, typically you'll eventually like racing. So I was the type of person always in my life where I didn't like looking at things only or watching it or being a spectator. I like doing it. So
Okay.
I was never going to be a car show type guy where I was ever going to get fast cars and just hard park them at a show. I wanted to be the person where, hey, if I bought a fast vehicle, I want to go utilize that fast vehicle. I want to take it to a track, go as fast as I can with it, make it faster, make myself faster at driving. I wanted to do that. And that's what I eventually did after college. I used to take my
Okay.
personal cars to local tracks near me in Southern California. I did all these open track days on road courses, drag strips. And after a few years of that, I finally was sitting in my room one night and I just made this crazy decision that I wanted to become a professional race car driver because I just felt like that was a path in life I could take. I could do it.
Yeah.
What was going to stop me? I knew there was going to be hurdles. I knew I wasn't going to know what I was doing, but I could figure it out. At the end of the day, there is no rules that say you have to do this or do that, whatever, to become. You just figure it out. You find your way in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's different than the NFL, NBA, where typically you got to get drafted or picked up in free agency. But typically, before even that, you got to make sure you played, college football and high school football before
Right.
that, and all that stuff. It's like this general path. Actually, there's pretty much one path.
Yeah, there's
to
like
each
gateways
one.
for the talent, like where it
Yeah.
filters. Like, okay, we're gonna
Ex-
filter the talent here,
Yeah. Yeah.
next
Yeah.
level up, filter next level. Yeah.
It's not exactly like that in racing. You could go from racing go-karts to racing sports cars to running a NASCAR. Or you could go from racing dirt sprint cars to sports cars to running a NASCAR. Or you could go from dirt sprint cars straight to NASCAR, or dirt sprint cars to go-karts to F3, F2, and then F1. There's like no
Yeah.
real route. And there's no college for it or anything like that. So you just figure it out. You get into a vehicle and you get as good as you can. And then you just try to get up to the next level by finding the funding and getting yourself as good as you can as a driver.
So what dictates that then? Like, finding the funding, I would imagine there are teams out there that are looking for good drivers. What are the skills that they're looking for then from drivers as they like, do they scout the lower level competitions to see who they can call up onto their team, or are they looking to poach from like a team that's doing better than they normally do because they've got a driver that's a little more
Yeah.
skilled at handling a machine? Like what is it that allows you to progress, right, and grow in the sport?
Yeah, there's a few different ways. Some of the ways are ones you mentioned. Yeah, some teams are looking at a younger series of drivers and working on developing them up the ranks. Some teams are looking for drivers who are already veterans who are currently running for different teams. They like them, they want to bring them over. And then some teams are like, hey, we don't have a ton of money. They don't have big corporate sponsors for that team. So they're like, okay, we just need the next driver who's at least halfway decent, but has funding. And
Yeah.
that's the other way. So it's all different kind of ways to get a driver. Unfortunately, the days of most of the teams just scouting drivers, picking them up and signing them, those days are dwindling away because racing is just, it costs more and more and more
Yeah.
every single year. So at the end of the day, if I'm a team, let's say I'm a team owner, and I'm thinking about, okay, team racing is a business, correct? So you have to have revenue and you'll have expenses, and hopefully you have more revenue than the expenses. So
Right.
if you're looking at your expenses, maybe it costs you, you know, $1 million a year to go racing in whatever series. Some obviously cost more than that, 10 million, 30 million, 400 million, depending on what series you're in. So let's say $1 million to go racing. Okay, cool. That's how much it's going to cost me between building race cars, hiring people, transporting them, doing all that stuff, paying people, doing all that, right? $1 million. Well, if it costs me $1 million, that means at a bare minimum, I need to bring in $1 million to cover my costs so I don't go into
Right.
the red. So how can I bring in $1 million? Okay, some people would say, what about the race winnings? Well, you're definitely not going to win every single race for sure. Maybe you'll win a few, if that, but it's hard to win. So you're not going to win them all, and you might not win any in a year. But even if you win, what's the payouts for each one? Let's say you have a 20 race season and the payouts are, let's say if you win the race, $10,000 per race, right? Or something like that. Well, then at that point, let's say if you won every single race that year for those 20 races, now you're sitting at $200,000 you brought in. But how much did it cost you? $1 million, correct? To
Yeah.
race. So where are you going to make up that other $800,000? Some people would say, oh, maybe apparel and merchandise and all that stuff. Okay, maybe sell $50,000 of merchandise that year. Now you still got 750 grand you still got to cover. How are you going to cover that? Oh, sponsorship, right? Well, the sponsor's like, we're gonna for sponsorship, we sponsor things that we can use for marketing, right? Well, your team, what are we gonna use to market? I mean, yeah, you got cool race cars and this and that, but what are we gonna
Right.
use to market? Where's the person? Where's like the personality, the talent? Like, who's that? The team's like, our driver, that's your personality right there. So then the sponsor goes to the driver and is like, I want to sponsor you, driver. And driver's like, okay, I need like, 750,000 or 800,000 or $1 million or whatever. And then that goes to cover basically the rest of that gap that you're looking at for that
Wow.
team owner. But if they don't have that sponsor, how are they going to cover that gap? Team owner better have a big business behind him that he owns that he can just use it as a tax write-off, or that that racing team is going under. So
And
now
they
you
become, I would imagine the team owner becomes like that business that's backing them becomes like the primary sponsor for the car, right? So they write it off as like advertising dollars for their business. And yeah, that's,
so
I mean, it's
if I own, like, I don't know, let's make up I don't know, I have a Dell computer in front of me, and if I own Dell, right, and that's my company right there, and all of a sudden I don't have any sponsors sponsoring my race team that I own, well, I'll just put the Dell name on there and just use extra funds that I made from Dell to pay for it, and I'll just Dell be my sponsor, and it'll look like Dell's backing me, but really it's more of I just didn't find any other sponsors, so I'm just using my business to make it happen, and it happens, and
yeah.
it's not a unusual thing. Sometimes you don't come up with enough sponsorship, so you got to figure out another way to fund it.
It's a crazy business model because it doesn't feel like the payout from the races and stuff would be enough to cover the investment in the car. So you really are banking on that real estate in the paint job to be able to cover the operating expenses and then some. You still want to make some profit so that it's a worthwhile venture. It's very interesting to me. I'm extremely interested in like the path of getting into it. My daughter, even though she is just 5 years old, is really interested in driving anything with wheels and a motor. I've got her in a go-kart right now that's like for it goes like 18 miles an hour at
Yeah.
5 years old, and she's, she drifts it around the corners, and she's racing her 11-year-old brother and beating him. It's cool to like, to see she's sparked by that passion. It is a very difficult thing though for parents. I would imagine like out west, I think they have a lot of infrastructure there for like youth entry into the sport, but
Mhm.
here on the East Coast, it's harder to come by, at least from my experience so far. Is that is it a normal thing? I mean, if you had that available to you in Texas, is that something as a kid that you would have been able to go into and maybe project through or grow through that, like a youth channel?
Um, for me, no. I was only gonna get into racing when I actually got into racing, which was when I was 26 years old.
Okay.
Just wasn't gonna happen before that. Like my parents didn't have money to go buy a go-kart or anything like that, or take me to track every other weekend and
Sure.
race and buy new tires. And because at the end of the day, let's say you get a go-kart, then you probably need a little small trailer, right? It's not gonna fit in the back of a car. So
Right. Yeah.
all these little things that become expensive. You gotta have somewhere to put the trailer. You gotta have this. You gotta have that. All this stuff happening. Unless you're able to keep it at the track, which could be helpful. But we didn't even have tracks like that near us, at least at
Yeah.
that time. So it was just never going to happen when I was a kid. So I had to wait until I was at an age and at a time in my life where I could figure it out myself, which is I could start my own business so I could make extra money on the side and use that money to basically sponsor myself to get into racing before I eventually found the bigger sponsors. For kids, getting into it, a lot of them run into the same issues where, yeah, it gets pricier and pricier as you go up. Tires,
Yeah.
better carts, as you move up to different series, you got to get more vehicles, all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, so it's definitely difficult. But that's how esports has really come into play and really helped people bridge that gap. A lot of people are turning to sim racing, where
Yeah.
maybe you make a somewhat of a decent size investment at first to get your full rig, get a good one, get a good steering wheel, all that stuff. But you can use this thing for years and years and years,
Yeah.
practice on it every day. You don't have to worry about changing oil on it. You don't got to worry about if you crash, you got to fix it. Like you just, you learn on there. And some people are using that to bridge that gap. And then eventually when they figure out a way to find the funding to get into better vehicles and race in bigger series, then they jump into that from there. But that's been a way, especially in the last few years, where people have been trying to bridge that gap.
That's a great point. It's a good idea to even think about that. And reading your bio, I know you do have a little bit of a venture with the esports or the sim racing as you
E-racing.
were.
Yeah, e-racing
E-racing.
associate.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
e-racing
So
association.
talk to me about that a little bit, right? That's, what is the e-racing about? How realistic is it? Like, you've been in the car? Have you been in the sim machine? I would imagine. So you've done both. How close are they?
It's very, very close. The physics on the sim are very, very realistic, very close to real life. They do really good with the tire modeling so that there's tire wear, tire fall off, all that stuff. So that you're not out there just running the perfect lap every single time. You got to
Yeah.
deal with all the conditions, hot tracks, colder tracks, people next to you driving, all that stuff. So it's very, very realistic. And I take what I learned from the sim and I can apply it to real life so that when I get to a particular track, it doesn't feel like I've never been there, especially
Yeah.
road course tracks. The sim is really, really good for road course tracks because when you get there, you're not having to relearn the track or learn it, period. One thing that really sucks is if you've never been to a road course track where there's like 15 corners and now you're tasked to go there and go really fast pretty quick and you're trying to figure out all the corners, when to turn left, when to turn right, blind corners, how fast to take even when you figure out all the corners, how fast to go through them.
Mm,
All that stuff is something you just don't have a lot of time on race day to figure out.
right.
You only have one or two practices, if that. Having the sim is very, very crucial. It's been super helpful, very close to real life. I highly suggest it's for anybody. The best sim softwares to use are iRacing and Assetto Corsa. Those are the best sim racing software. Now, there's other stuff you can use, other like I would say more arcade-ish type games.
Sure.
But to me, those don't help you get ready for real life. If you're really trying to get ready for real life, you use sim software. So
No,
iRacing
that's awesome.
and Assetto
iRacing, and what was the
Corsa.
other one?
Assetto Corsa.
Assetto Corsa.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out for sure because I don't know where we'll be able to find a track for my daughter. So we're gonna have to do some e-racing or something. So what's your preferred platform as far as like vehicle? I know you've done quite a few different ones. You've raced in the Truck Series. You've done there's like stock car.
There's Xfinity
Xfinity.
Series.
Yeah.
There's the Truck Series. I've run ARCA, NASCAR K&N Series. I've run a lot of different series, different sports car stuff, endurance racing, dirt racing. I've done a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I like the truck racing a lot. Xfinity is cool too because I'm still new in the Xfinity series, still learning. But it's just it's cool to be at that level, and it's a cool learning experience. And I like the NASCAR Truck Series as well because I like all the aero and how much downforce those things have, and they're pretty fun.
Yeah.
Especially on road courses. I like those things on road courses a lot. But I don't know. I like them all. There's I have fun as long as I'm in a race car driving. I like it.
You like to go fast. So what is your driver today then? Like what you leave the track in what? What are you driving home?
Typically a rental car, but for me, like when I actually get home, I have a few cars here. I have a 1991 Nissan Skyline GTR, and then I have a 2017 C7 Z06 Corvette, and then a 2006 C6 Z06 Corvette.
All fast cars.
All very fast.
But you stay out of trouble with those things, right? That's do you take those out on the track on like your personal time?
Yeah. I take the C6 Z06 drifting, usually once or twice a month. The C7 Z06 is more of just kind of a cruiser and drag strip car. And then the Skyline is also just a cruiser, and I take it to a drag strip here and there.
How mechanical are you? Are you just a driver guy, or are you also a fix-it guy?
Definitely a driver. I can fix little stuff. I'm fairly worldly where I understand what's going on. I don't like to work on vehicles because nothing goes on the way you want it to. Nothing comes off the way you want it to. And then when it's an issue, it's just really frustrating. It's very, very frustrating working on cars. So that's why I don't like doing it. I'd rather give it to someone else who has the patience because you have to have the patience to do it. There's no other way around it.
It's the diagnostics. It's the, not every problem is going to be the same. So you have to, and to your point, like things break and you got to problem solve and figure out how to that part that I had on, like I pulled that part out and now that part's not going in, and it's like a puzzle that's not supposed to be solved sometimes. I totally feel for you there on that front. And I want to be mindful of time because I know we're approaching your time limit here. So last question on my side. What are your naval peers, your Navy peers, what do they think about your racing and your celebrity on that side of it?
Yeah, they think it's awesome. I was just on a call the other day with a bunch of classmates from 2010 Naval Academy, and they are all just super pumped with everything I've been able to do over the last 10 years now, but really for racing the last 6 years. And they're ecstatic that I'm going after my goals, going after my dreams, making it happen, and then shedding a good light on the Naval Academy, the Navy, and military in general around the world. So I'm gonna keep going, keep grinding, and hopefully it continues to inspire others to go after their goals and dreams because a lot of people can take a lot of nuggets from my journey. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to just be someone who wants to get into racing to be able to learn from what I've been able to do. You can take what I've been able to do and apply certain concepts to your life and achieve whatever you want to achieve in life and get to wherever you want to go. So I'm always putting out different inspirational and motivational tidbits on LinkedIn and sometimes Facebook and Instagram, but mainly LinkedIn. And just trying to shed some light on some things just so that people can understand that, hey, if you want to get anywhere in life, there's these things you need to be able to do. This is where you need to get your mindset at, and when you put that all together, you will achieve it. You'll achieve it. You'll achieve it. I promise you.
It's awesome stuff. And I really appreciate you being, taking some time out of your busy day to be part of the Lazy Lad podcast. We really appreciate it. The viewers for sure. And, we look forward to seeing what you do on race day. Real quick, Jesse, score prediction, Air Force Academy versus the Naval Academy. I know it's Air Force week. Matt Mitchelson clued me in on that. So I just want to, as an Air Force guy, I want to get your score prediction for that game.
Yeah, my score is go Navy, beat Air Force. That's my score right there.
All right. Sounds good.
Navy in the fourth.
There we go. Okay. All right. Well, Jesse, I appreciate it so much, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.